this is Chris DePape, Midwest Renovation Manager here at Guaranteed Rate. Today I'm joined by HUD Consultant Gerald Stewart, and we are going to talk about his role as a consultant doing the FHA 203K write-up. We're going to discuss home style and choice, which are the other renovation programs we have. And we're just going to go through a common list of questions that, both of us get asked about his role. So the first question, Gerald, is the HUD consultant the same as a home inspector?
No, we are two different professionals, whereas a home inspector is going to go through and basically generate a report that's issued back to you within 24 hours. And whereas a HUD consultant is going to go through and identify the deficiencies in the property. And it's a much more extensive process because we have to take the measurements, identify the repairs, quantify everything that's going within that report, and then do a cost analysis. So our reports take a week to generate from the date of the inspection.
Great, they're just much more detailed, so that's my takeaway from that. How long does the consultant appointment take? If the borrowers are out there looking to schedule, how much time should they allot for that appointment?
They should definitely allot anywhere between an hour to 2 hours for a consultant to come out and inspect their property.
Does their general contractor, need to be at that appointment with you?
No, we asked that they not have the general contractors at the property solely because my report will identify, and it's going to be the document that the contractor is going to use to put their cost on. So what we want to do is make sure if they have multiple contractors bidding this property for them, they have a template for everyone to bid off of, so they have a comparison and they can really see the true bids when they come back.
So the contractor will get a format that's done by the HUD consultant. It's blank, and then they fill out their cost on that. That way, if you have a couple contractors you're bidding out, you can compare. So that's a really great feature.
I'd like to touch on that, Chris. That was a great point. So when we're out in the field, we're going to generate two reports. We're going to generate a SOR, which is specification repairs, which will have everything listed out, as well as a BOR, and that blank report that you're referring to is the BOR. So the contractor has all the verbiage in the report, and they just need to put down their actual unit costs.
So we have two acronyms you guys are going to hear a lot. SOR is specification of repair, and BOR is the bid on repair. So those are the two forms you get. One, the SOR has all the numbers in it, so you can see to make sure that the project's in your budget, and the BOR is going to go to the contractors that are bidding out. Does the architect need to be at that appointment? Would that be helpful? I know we've been asked that.
Yeah, we get asked that. It's kind of, sometimes it works out really good. It's not really necessary. Every consultant is different. Every consultant has a different background. Myself personally, I prefer to meet with the client first, identify exactly what they want to have done with the property, make sure it's feasible to be done. I know the structural points in homes and buildings where the architect is going to come in more so and follow the lead of the consultant. So we prefer the consultant be the first one out to the property.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. And then how long does a consultant appointment take once they schedule with you?
Yep, it takes 1 hour to 2 hours in the field. And if we were to receive an email requesting our services, we're normally scheduling them out within the next 48 to 72 hours.
No, great. So I think you get this question a lot. I know I do. When I tell them they have to get a HUD consultant, they ask, is the HUD consultant my GC? Are you the GC as well as being the HUD consultant?
No, so that would be considered a conflict of interest. So our sole responsibility is to represent the client, to identify these repairs, work with them and their GC to oversee the project from that perspective and make sure the contractors are paid. We're basically the eyes and the ears for the lender. It gives the lender the insurance that when they go into this bond with that client, that investment is protected.
Okay, and then what is the difference between an FHA 203K write-up and a conventional write-up? Now there's two conventional programs, there's Homestyle and Freddie Choice, but the conventional, they're basically the same. So what's the difference in the two write-ups? You have a 203K or a conventional renovation. Can you explain on that?
The big difference is the flexibility in the two loan products. Whereas the FHA, we have minimum property standards that FHA puts out that we have to list in these reports as mandatory repairs. And whereas the conventional loan products, you're pretty much picking and choosing what you desire to have done with that property, but both reports are going to cost out material and labor, so we know if it's a viable project for you.
So FHA is a great program for clients that, maybe have some credit issues or they're buying multi-units, maybe high debt to income. But with the FHA report, typically comes a little bit higher cost of repair because there's HUD minimum standards that are mandatory that have to be repaired for the appraisal. So that's the big difference. When you're doing a conventional renovation program, it's pretty much whatever you want, okay? So that's great. I appreciate you explaining that. How long does it take once you go out to the appointment for the client to receive the report?
Yeah, the reports take 1 week from the date of the inspection. So when the consultant's out in the field, the payment is made at the time of the appointment, at the conclusion of that inspection, and that's when the clock starts ticking and your report is generated within that next 7 days, and it's returned to the client and the lender for review.
So say they get the report back in 7 days, Gerald, and their budget, they thought, I want to spend $100,000, and your write-up comes in at $160,000. Obviously, they have some options at that time. Do they come back to you and then walk through it, and maybe they ask for a few extra things I didn't know about, and they scale back? Will you then edit the report?
Yeah.
Talk about that?
We'll make revisions to the report. It works both ways. Maybe they thought it was going to cost $100,000, but the report came back at $80,000, and they find out they have room to add more items to the report. We're going to increase the value of the home by doing more work. But in the case where the report comes back $60,000 over what they originally were thinking their budget would be, then we're going to look at what items can be removed that won't affect the appraised value as much, because we want them to get their values in their home.
No, that's great. So I think a question that comes a lot to me and you is the HUD consultant my appraiser, because he's coming out and giving me this cost analysis, can he tell me what the value of the property is? So
yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. So our job as a consultant is to tell you the cost of construction. The appraisers, they're a separate professional regulated department, and their job is to appraise out the property based off the improvements that this report details to them.
Got it. So when he gives us this report with the improvements, I'll take that report and it goes through a compliant, appraisal company that will come out and do the valuation. Really, if we're trying to get to valuation, we'd ask a realtor who's involved in the transaction. On a refinance, we can look at like closed sales and try to help out with the value. So in this program, we have contingency. Let's talk a little bit about the contingency. How does that work? I can mention to people on conventional, it's usually 10%. We can increase it to 15% if there's, sometimes people are a little nervous and want more money. The standard's 10%. FHA, we can do, they do require 15% typically. Can you talk a little bit about the contingency and what it can be used for and how it's used? I think first of all, how it's used.
Yep. So the contingency, as you mentioned, can range anywhere from 10 to 15%. And the contingency is a set aside account separate from your construction budget, and it's for unforeseen conditions. When we go out in the field, there are things that we won't see until the demolition takes place. And when that demo takes place in the first 30 days of your project, your contractor may identify some things that need to be repaired in addition to what the original scope called out. Those changes are put on a change order form, which then we submit to the lender for approval once your contractor has provided that cost of those change orders. And these change orders can vary from things that are health and safety related to things that maybe they desire to make upgrades throughout the duration of their project. So it's a great thing to have in place, because once you close a home loan, you don't typically have a lot of extra money sitting around to deal with unforeseen repairs that may come up during this duration.
Yeah, and I think we'll mention, like in 2020 when lumber went through the roof, right, the prices tripled, quadrupled. These contingencies, for example, if you're doing a $200,000 project, you would add $20,000 or $30,000 in this fund. It's just a reserve fund. And most people tapped into that and were able to cover the cost of the wood. So that really helped a lot of our clients. I just want to mention that. So that's great. Can the money in the contingency, like on day one, they realize, oh, I should have done this. I want to do a change order. Because I've actually had that call where they say they missed something and they immediately want to do a change order. And I obviously direct them to you. I know there's a bit of a procedure on desired items being changed because they have to get through, you said, the demo. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so we get that every now and then. We try to be as clear as possible with the clients when we're in the field to identify what they want done. We ask them, what do you desire to have done with your property? So we can include that in the report and get that cost in there. But when these cases come up, and it's basically, it's a case-by-case situation. If the repairs that they are looking to have done are mandatory for health and safety, the lender's gonna approve them. But if these repairs are simply they want to add 20 recessed can lights, or they decided they want to add a patio door off the back of their home, those repairs may be tabled until the project nears 50% completion, to be able to make sure that the contractor has gotten in, completed demolition, the mechanical, the electrical, the plumbing is in place, the roof is not leaking, there's no underground plumbing issues, that contingency would really be necessary to get this house up and running.
No, that's great. I really appreciate you explaining that. We get a lot of questions on that. Let's talk a little bit about 203K and conventional reno. They're two different programs. And the reason is that the FHA 203K has HUD minimum standards, which are mandatory repairs. Can you give just maybe 5 or 10 examples of some of the stuff you see, when you come up into these homes? We see them a lot on your reports. Maybe you can share that. And these have to be done, everyone, on FHA 203K to pass the appraisal.
So when I walk up to a property, first thing I'm doing is visually looking at the exterior of the property. I walk around, take photos. As I walk the property, I'm identifying the condition of the roof, the condition of the masonry or the siding, the sidewalks, if there's trip hazards, if there's a back porch, is it in compliance? Does it need additional handrails? Are the rails installed correctly? Are there broken window panes? And then once I go on the inside of the property, I'm looking at the condition of the interior of the property, such as the condition of the walls, the electrical, is it up to code? The plumbing, the staircases, you name it, any and everything inside that property that needs to meet minimum property standards would be listed as a mandatory repair if there's deficiencies within it. Whereas in the conventional loan, it's pretty much what the client desires to have done with that property. We don't have to go through and say, you have several holes in the walls and you need to replace the drywall. You may say, I'm not concerned with it. I'm gonna patch it up and I'm not gonna paint it. I'm gonna paint it myself, in the fall. So it gives them a lot more flexibility with the conventional loans versus the FHA. So the cost of the repairs can be very, very comprehensive when we look at an FHA loan with a lot of little items versus a conventional loan that may have just big ticket items.
Yeah, so the conventional loan, you basically get to pick whatever you want done. There's not going to be, like, if you have the little crack in the window pane, some peeling paint, conventional is not going to call out for that. The FHA will. FHA also allows for desired items. Gerald's just saying that they do have to address the mandatory. So when you get his report back, which is called the SOR, it will have the mandatory repairs. Those can't be removed because that's needed to pass the appraisal. So I appreciate you kind of clarifying that and what the differences are. Let's talk a little bit about, now that we've gotten through all this and our clients are moving forward and we're maybe a week away from closing, should they reach out to you? What are the next steps as a HUD consultant, knowing that, you stay with the project from the front to the finish line, they're getting ready to close. What should they be doing and with you as the consultant at that time?
So some of the key factors in this process is reaching out to your contractor. If there's an architect involved, reaching out to your architect. If there are drawings that are going to be needed for permits to be processed and applied for. So we asked the week prior to closing just to send out an email so that all parties can engage in knowing this project is nearing closing so that it can get off to a real good start.
Yeah, and he just actually mentioned drawings, so we're going to talk about the final point. We often speak about Gerald's the first one out, super important. You get the report back in a week and you're doing a home addition and he doesn't need architect plans at that point because he knows the cost. But it's super important at that time to engage in an architect by starting with a floor plan. I'm not saying full blueprints because that's where confusion comes in. I need a floor plan to go along with his write-up that just shows to scale what is going to happen. We need a proposed floor plan and a current floor plan, because when the appraiser comes out, if you're doing an addition, he's not able to see that because he just can see what the house is. And a lot of people are doing additions with then changing the main floor. Like, oh, we have a bedroom here. Well, we don't need it as a bedroom, so we're gonna make this an office, or we're gonna open it up and make it a family room. We need a floor plan to order the appraisal. And then once we get the floor plan, which should only take a couple weeks to get the floor plan, then you're having the architect go into much more full-scale drawings that are needed for a permit. So I just wanted to clarify that. So that's a little bit about some of the general questions that come up, when we work on these programs with our clients. If you need any clarifications or have any questions, please reach out to me at 773-848-4144.